Continue our Unsolved series with a cold case from 1987. Peggy Hettrick was 37 years old. She was on her way home from a bar in Fort Collins when she was stabbed to death. At the time, investigators suspected 15-year-old Tim Masters. He was convicted of murder in 1999, sentenced to life in prison. But 8 years later, thanks to new DNA technology, Masters' name was cleared and his conviction was vacated. That also means that the killer was never found and this case remains unsolved.
Oh, it's one of the most upsetting things in my career that this is left in such a pending state. I'm very passionate and very upset that it was never taken to as far as it could.
So Kevin Vaughan is joining me now. He's covered this story extensively over the years, knows it kind of inside and out. First, I guess let's go back to Tim Masters.
Sure.
Why did they really kind of zero in on him?
Well, Tim lived with his father in a mobile home that overlooked the field where Peggy Hettrick's body was found. He admitted to police immediately that he had walked through that field and walked over and looked at the body on his way to school. It was sort of very early morning. It was still mostly dark out. He told them he thought it was a mannequin, and he didn't report it to the police. And they found in his home a bunch of what you would describe as survival knives. They found writings and drawings that I think anybody would say are disturbing, drawings of people being tortured and stuff like that, and that set the focus on him right away.
So all these years pass. They finally arrest him, they convict him, he spends years in prison. New DNA technology comes about that is able to show skin DNA on someone, and it wasn't Tim Masters on her body. So therefore, his conviction was vacated. He's let out in prison. He wins $10 million in civil suits. So here we are, unsolved again. Talk about any other suspects that were looked at, including the ex-boyfriend.
Sure, the DNA that was found was skin cell, as you said, skin cell DNA, touch DNA, and it was consistent with a longtime boyfriend of Peggy Hettrick's, but he's never been arrested or charged or anything. Nobody else has, obviously. And there are other suspects. I mean, there was, there was a man in and out of Fort Collins in that era who's now in prison for killing 4 people. There was another boyfriend that Peggy had gone out with that they believe his name was Derek. She had told friends about him. The police never figured out exactly who he was. It was a time when people were moving in and out of Fort Collins all the time. So it's just, a mystery at this point.
Yeah.
Who else could be considered a suspect?
Right. Linda Wheeler-Holloway, she talks about how this case it really got very political over the years for many reasons as it kind of unfolded. What would it take at this point to get this to be solved?
Well, somebody needs to decide that they have enough evidence to take it to trial. That's essentially what would need to happen. Would the district attorney in Larimer County, whose office prosecuted Tim Masters, more than 20 years ago, do it? That's a good question. They might have a hard time going in front of a jury and saying, we prosecuted somebody for this once before, and now we're prosecuting this different person. Mm-hmm. The Colorado Attorney General's office did a lot of investigative work on this. It's a question as to whether that office could take up the case and try to prosecute somebody. But ultimately, the first thing that needs to happen is somebody needs to say, as Linda believes, there is enough evidence to seek charges against somebody.
Yeah.
And so far, a person in authority has not done that.
Yeah. She believes there's probable cause, first of all, and then there's evidence. But again, is it enough to move forward? So we shall see. Kevin, thank you so much.